Hi everyone, well welcome to Diamond Delight Edibles. If this is the first time you're joining, my name is Liz, and to the rest of the subscribers, guys, welcome back and thank you so much. I just passed the 10,000 mark and oh my god, I am so excited, I can't believe it. You like me, you really like me. Just kidding. Anyway guys, couldn't have done any of that without you. I really do appreciate your support and all your awesome comments and everything. I really do. From the bottom of my heart, absolutely love you. So for today, what I'm going to show you guys is quite a few things that you can do with your tincture. And as well as I'm going to show you a couple of different ways that we are going to do canna flower. So you can do canna flower with your plant material, or you can do it with tincture. And other than that, I'm going to show you some different ways of doing it. So tincture, like I said, I kind of avoided it for a really long time for one, how long it takes to make. However, with the magic butter machine, 4 hours, giddy up. So I've kind of switched over to using that because I absolutely love it, because you can do so much with it. So, for example, like the canna sugar that I had in my previous video that I showed you, how to do that. Well, you can do that with almost any of your baking and cooking products. So I'm going to show you, like I said today, how we're going to do flour. You can do it with tincture or with bud. Show you both ways to do that. You can also, with tincture, the same way that we're going to do the dehydrated version, you can do powdered sugar. The other way you can do powdered sugar is from your canna sugar. And I'll explain that to you when I get to the powdered sugar section. You can do things like infuse your drink crystals, your cocoa, or your hot chocolate mix, your cocoa for baking. You could also do, if you box recipes, you could do your cake or your brownies or any of your cookie things like that. You could infuse them there with your tincture and just dehydrate it, and then you've got it right in there. As well as you can calculate your dosing a lot better. I've put a link in the description there for you guys of the calculator that I use. I find it really good. It is a free subscription to sign up. You don't have to pay anything at all. And as I said, that's what I use. So that's what you can use, and you can figure out exactly how strong or how weak you want to make things. As well as being able to do this, you can now have a combination of your products. So you can use like canna sugar, canna syrup. That's what I'm going to show you too, how to do canna syrup. I'm redoing that for one particular reason. I'll get into the details of that when we get to the canna syrup. Also how to do simple syrup, which is pretty much the same as your canna syrup. Yeah, so I'm going to go over all those things. If there's only one particular thing that you're interested in, I'm going to have up for you those spots on the video so that you can just easily skip to that if you'd like. And to those who wished I'd have gotten my nails done, and to those of you who commented, yes, I got my nails done. Woo! And I know they looked really ratty. I'd look at the video and go like, oh my god, they look terrible. So yay, they're done. So what I'm going to do is, the first part, we're going to get into the different ingredients that we need for the different recipes we're going to do, the equipment that we're going to need, and then put all this kind of stuff together. So now with our canna flour with tincture, well, what I'm going to be using is 2 cups of flour, 1/4 cup of my tincture, and you are going to need, what I found has worked best is a non-stick oven tray or baking cookie sheet. Works better. I found that the glass, even though if I use oil, I still found that a lot of the stuff is sticking. A lot of your THC stuff is sticking to it and very, very difficult to get off. So I've experimented with a few different things, and this has worked best. You will need a non-stick cooking spray, or you can just use regular olive oil or any type of cooking oil. We're just going to very lightly grease this pan. And that's all you need for for our tincture version, and you want to preheat your oven to 200 degrees Fahrenheit. So you want to get that started, and we will get our flours going. All right, so the very first thing we're going to do is to grease our pan, and we said we're going to very lightly do this. And the reason being is the oil, the THC oil can separate out, and what it does is it will automatically stick to the metal. And once it does that, it doesn't come away unless you use another oil, because THC is oil soluble. So the only way to get it away is to use another oil. So that's why I found lining the pans works great. So I'm just going to give it a light spray. And then you wipe that down. Or the other, if you're using oil, just give it a very light drizzle, a couple little drops, like so. And just make sure to get it all over the pan. Make sure to get it up the sides and in the corners, because anywhere that you don't have it, it'll stick. But we just want to set the pan just very lightly coated because we don't want oil in that in our base product. So got that ready to go. My oven is preheating. So we are just going to add our tincture into our flour, like so. And you're just going to stir it in till it all gets mixed together. And you might need to use your hands. That's what I like to do. I just like to get my hands in here and just work it through. And you'll just continue to do that until your tincture is all nicely worked through your flour. And once you've got it mixed in there, just put it into your laid out in your pan or your cookie sheet. I like using a pan better, so because you got to keep kind of moving it around, and on the cookie sheet I find a lot flies off onto the bottom, and it's just more mess you got to clean up. And I'm all about not cleaning up messes. I'm really good at making them. I don't really like cleaning them. Then once you've got your flour in the pan, you just want to score it. So you can either just use your spatula, or if you've got a straight edge scraper, you can just use that. So you want to just make these little lines through it. Why I'm doing this is it helps the air, the hot air, go through. It helps it dehydrate a little bit quicker and a little more even. So once you've got that done, you're going to pop it in. Oh, really important thing, let me tell you, really important thing, you want to run a fan, either a stand fan, or if you've got a ceiling fan, get that running, again, because you've got alcohol that's going to be evaporating, and don't light up anything in the kitchen, okay? Safety first. Oops, that would be the light. There we go. Got my fan going. My oven's preheated. And of course I've got some in the oven. Alright, then you're just going to pop it in the oven on the middle shelf or the top rack. Doesn't really matter. And you're going to leave the oven door ajar. So if your oven door will stay open to there, great. If not, just put something in there to keep the oven door open, because you want the air to circulate. It's going to help dry out, help your dehydrating process, as well as the fumes not accumulating all in your oven, which could cause a boom, and we don't want that. All right, so get your make sure your fan is always going, and we'll check on this about every 10-15 minutes. We're going to move it around to make sure that it all dries evenly. All right, now while that's dehydrating, we'll get into the canna flour with the herb. Now, for our canna flour with our herb, very first thing you're going to do is we're going to grind up our herb super, super fine. So, said herb grinders work the best. And you want to take out the stem. So just remove your plant material from the stem, take the stems out. Reason being is because they don't grind up really fine, and we want to make this a flour. And that's all flour is super fine ground up wheat. So we're just going to do the same thing with this. Wow, that's some super fine grind there. There you go. So you're going to dump this into your flour. get a brush to get all the extra out. I don't have one right now. If you got a brush handy, grab a brush. Oh, I found my brush. So you want to make sure to get all of that out into your flour. Waste not, want not. And now, because we want to get our plant material evenly distributed through our flour, this is why we need the sifter or the fine strainer. So you're going to drop your flour and the plant material into your strainer and just gently work it through. And you're just going to continue to do that until all of that goes through. If you're having trouble, you can always just use a spatula to work it through. Just keep moving it around. And eventually it'll all go through. And you're going to do this at least 2 or 3 times. This way we'll make sure that everything is well mixed together and kind of evenly distributed. Alright, so I switched up my strainer because my other one was a little too fine mesh and the flour was having too hard of a time going through. So I went with the one that had a little bit of a wider mesh. So that was my first run. This is going to be my second run. See, that comes through a lot better. Way easier. And I'm going to go third time. And there you have it. And have a look at your flour. And you'll see, make sure that it just looks all nice and even, that you don't see kind of any patches of anything. Once that all looks good, you can go ahead and store your flour in a glass mason jar or any airtight container and use it as you will for your baking recipes. Just bigger quantities would be exactly the same. Now you've got your your infused flour, as well as you can also use your butters and Canna oils. So again, it gives you far more flexibility on how strong or how weak you want to make your products. Alright, so now we're going to check in on our tincture flour. So it is starting to dehydrate. It's kind of sticking together there. Not a problem. You're going to get your scraper or your spatula, and you're just going to move that around and break it up. And that's it. Just keep doing that until we are completely dried. So this will take anywhere, depending on how much you're doing, probably about up to an hour, 40 minutes to an hour, to a couple of hours, as I said, depending on how much you're making. So you just keep doing that, keep checking it on it about every 20 minutes or so. Keep breaking it up, mixing it up, and continue doing that until it's fully dried. And back in the oven. Alright, so you take your flour out, you think it's dry, you moved it around, feels pretty good, but there's lots of little balls, little chunks that aren't breaking down. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that those get broken down and evenly mixed in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to put our flour in through our strainer. And you're going to sift it through, and we're going to catch all those hard little balls. So just continue to sift that through until all the flour gets through and all the little balls and stuff get caught up here in the top. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put them into our blender or Ninja or Magic Bullet or whatever that you've got as a grinding machine, and we're going to grind those all up and add them in. And then we're going to put this back in the oven because I'm finished drying, because those little balls will be holding on to moisture. Alright, so see there, I got all those there left. I'm going to throw those into my little magic bullet container thingamajigger. Let's see if I can actually not get them into the flour. And I'm just going to pop the lid on and run them through the magic bullet until they're all fine. I blended up or grinded up my little my flour there, and I'm going to sift that through. Again, any other hard balls we're going to pull out and regrind down. So just keep doing that until you don't have any of those anymore, and we'll finish dehydrating that. Alright, so I'm just going to put it back into my pan, put it back in the oven, and finish dehydrating that. So probably another 20 minutes, 15 minutes or so. I don't know, until it's dry. How does that sound? Whoa, check it out. Turn the camera around. Now you can actually see me and what I'm doing. Only 30 some odd videos took me to figure that one out. Not sometimes cute, but not too bright. Anyhow, once your flour is completely dried, you can run it through your grinder for one final go. But if it feels all nice and perfectly nice and silky smooth, then you're good to go. You can store it in however you like to store your flour, or a Ziploc baggie or any type of airtight container. You're good to go. All right, now next for icing sugar. All right, so for icing sugar, you got two ways that you can do this. One way is the dehydrating the exact same method as you just did the flour with the tincture. Now for the powdered sugar, what I did was 1 cup of powdered sugar to 2 tablespoons of tincture, and I added 1 tablespoon at a time. Mixed it thoroughly with my hands, just like I did in the flour, and then added the 2nd tablespoon. You can try to maybe add a 3rd, but I'd be careful because it's going to get a little bit pasty and just going to have to dry it out longer. But you can probably do more. I'm just going to go with the 2 tablespoons right now. You're going to pop it in the oven at, I'm going to say drop this about a little bit lower. Do it to 175, and the exact same method every 10-20 minutes. Move it around and break up any big chunks, and continue until that's completely dry. Now the other method, the way you can do it, is take a cup of the Canna sugar that you've made, use 1 cup, add it to a grinder, a coffee grinder, or your herb grinder would work the best. That's going to give you your finest grind. I found like the Ninjas or the blender type thingies that make smoothies, they don't give you quite as fine of a grind, and I don't have a coffee grinder, so I'm not actually going to do the whole demonstration for you. But it is 1 cup of your Canna sugar to 1 tablespoon of cornstarch. That's it. Put it in the grinder until it's super, super fine, like your powdered sugar, and store again in a Ziploc or airtight container. Alright, so last but not least, we're going to do our simple syrup and our Canna syrup. And your simple syrup you would use in alcoholic drinks or smoothies, milkshakes, anything like that. You can also use it for making fruit salad. Whole bunch of things, anything that would call for simple syrup, you can use that in. And the other is your Canna syrup, which is glucose syrup, also known as inverted sugar, and it is a direct replacement for light corn syrup. So I'm going to show you how to make that. Now your simple and the regular syrup is exactly the same. The only difference is in the temperatures that you're cooking. So there are 2 types of simple syrup. There is the type that you're probably used to at the bar. It's very watery. It seems very watery. That is a 1-to-1 ratio, meaning 1 cup of sugar to 1 cup of water. Now the other type that I'm going to be doing is a 2-to-1 ratio. And that is 2 cups of your sugar to 1 cup of water. And for my Canna recipe, I'm going to use 1 cup of Canna sugar and 1 cup of regular sugar to 1 cup of water. and a half a teaspoon of citric acid. And then, as I said, the only difference is in how you cook it. Simple syrup, you're just going to bring it to a boil. Once everything is dissolved, you're going to pull it from the heat, let it cool to room temperature. The Canna syrup, we're going to cook to 234 degrees, and that's going to give us a much thicker syrup. And the longer that you cook it, the thicker it's going to get. However, you do not want to go over 240, otherwise you're going to have syrup that you cannot work with. All right, so I'm just going to quickly get into our equipment and tools that we need, and we'll get started. All right, so we are going to need, if you're doing the 2 cups, you're going to need a medium saucepan. If you're doing 1 cup, then you just use a smaller saucepan. You're going to need your candy thermometer if you're making the glucose syrup. You do not need it if you're making the simple syrup. You're going to need a spatula and the lid for your pot that fits. If you can't find the lid that fits, find one that's slightly bit bigger and just turn it upside down. That works too. All right, that's it for what we need. Let's get started. Alrighty, so the reason I decided I'm redoing the Canna syrup, if you may have seen the other one, is there was one very important step that I did not initially do because I didn't realize I needed to. So when I was making it, I noticed that as it heated up, the THC oil would be separating and it started to stick around the sides of the pot. And it wasn't coming off, and I'm like, oh, that's an awful lot of product being stuck there that you can't get off. So what is THC soluble with? Oil, that's right. So it is very important that we oil line our pan. You just want to make a very light coating and cover the entire pan, as well as your spatula or any tools that you are going to be using with your syrup. So you don't want to leave any excess oil or anything in there. You just want the pan lightly coated all over, like so. And I'm going to do the same with my spatula. The same thing, when we're getting the oil off the sides there, it will stick to the spatula, but then it won't come off the spatula. So again, we want to oil anything that's going to come in contact with our syrup. Now we are going to add in our 1 cup of Canna syrup, our 1 cup of white sugar, our half a teaspoon of citric acid, our cup of water, and we are going to mix this together, and then we are going to put it on our stove on medium-high. I'm going to turn my heat there on to, as I said, medium-high, and I'm going to continue stirring this. Now usually in my candy syrups, you guys, I always say as soon as it starts boiling to stop stirring. However, we're going to have to do this a little bit differently. Like I said, as it heats up, the THC oil starts to separate and sticks to the side of the pot, and we don't want that. So in order to prevent that, or to make sure that it actually gets into our syrup, is we're going to have to constantly be gently scraping the side all the way around the side of our pot. So see that's come off? We want that in our syrup. That's the good stuff. So just take it off the sides and just melt it into the syrup. And we're going to continue to do this pretty much all the way through the cooking process. Now towards the end of it, it does kind of settle down and kind of go in, but as I said, you'll see the whole process here. So see all that gets stuck to the side? So that's why I wanted to redo this particular video for that reason. It was like, oh my gosh, that is not good. So I'm going to continue to stir that and clean down the sides until it starts boiling. So again, just keep continually, well, not continually, but every couple of minutes or so, scrape the side gently Now, as it begins to boil, you're going to add on your candy thermometer. And now, because we're making an inverted sugar, which is a saturated solution, I don't know if you remember your science class, however, it is very delicate. So we are not supposed to stir this once it starts boiling. However, we do have to continue to kind of work those sides. So what you're going to do is just very gently, right kind of at the top of the bubble line, just work it from there. You don't really want to get your spoon into the syrup. And you're just going to gently continue to work like that. And pull the stuff in. And any impurities will cook off. And we'll leave all our yummy stuff. But again, like I said, it will continue to stick to the sides for a while until it gets to temperature, and then it all starts to blend in nicely. And like I said, we are going to cook this to 234 degrees Fahrenheit. And once it also starts boiling, turn your heat down to medium, just a little bit to the higher side. So if you got numbers, it'd be around the 6 mark. I don't like saying it, so medium, yeah. You know what I'm talking about. So I said I'm going to continue to very gently, just at the top of the syrup line. And the reason I said is you don't want to cause any kind of major agitation, because that can cause your syrup to crystallize. And then also don't forget behind the thermometer, very gently pick it up, move it, get to clean in very gently again behind it. See how much stuff was there? And move it back. And just try working very, very gently. So we're kind of going against the rules of doing inverted sugar here by doing this. Now, sorry, if you were doing simple syrup, I should have kind of said this before, you would have pulled it a while ago. So once it was boiling and started to get clear, you would pull it. You could actually at this point pull it. So say about 208, 210 degrees or so, you can pull off that. That would be your simple syrup. And you would put the pan on the back of the burner and just let it sit there until it reaches room temperature. Once it reaches room temperature, it is ready to go. You can transfer it to a bottle or another container, or just leave it in the pot. Alright, so I'm almost at the 234. So I'm just going to make sure to do my final quick scrape down here. And then the minute I hit 234, I'm going to remove the candy thermometer, put the lid on it, and put it on the back burner until it reaches room temperature. And I'm not going to touch it again. There we go. Lid. There you are. Put the lid on it, and that's it. So as I said, it's very important not to touch it until it hits temperature. Alright, so you're just going to let your your Canna syrup and your simple syrup, if you did both of them, you're going to let them sit until they get to room temperature. Once I said they get to room temperature, you can go ahead and use them right away. If you want to transfer them to another container, storage container, then make sure that it is very well washed, sterilized. Any particle, dust particle, hair, anything at all can crystallize your Canna syrup. The simple syrup, not as much, it's not as delicate, but your Canna syrup, absolutely. I don't generally recommend using plastic containers. However, if you do want to use plastic, try to use a brand new one that you've never used. Obviously, that's brand new. I'm such a dummy sometimes. But yeah, so just use one that's brand new. And that way you won't have to worry about any kind of cross-contamination. But other than that, I'm going to show you the syrup once it's cooled, and I'll be back to say goodbye. And here is our corn syrup. So I'm just going to transfer it over to this bowl. You want to be very gentle. Do not use a metal spoon, a wooden spoon, or a rubber spatula only. And so the reason that you want to be very gentle is because if you agitate it too much or are too rough with it, it will crystallize. So guys, that was my demonstration for Canna flour, simple syrup, Canna syrup, and your powdered sugar. I hope you enjoyed that. A lot of information there for you, but it's all along the same lines. And now it's great because now you've got all of the bases for your baking and cooking. So you're not just stuck now with butter. You've got a variety of being able to use base ingredients right in your cooking and baking. So now it's really easy for you to take your own favorite recipes that you like to do. Maybe you've got a grandma's chocolate chip cookie recipe. Now it's very easy. Go ahead and use your Canna flour and your butter, sugar as usual. And yeah, let me know how your recipes turn out. I love hearing when things turn out. And I definitely love hearing when you do have a problem as well, so that I can try and help you fix that. And I think that is all I have for you today. I do hope that you subscribe. There's going to be tons more stuff coming in the future. And yeah, that's about all I got to say for you today. Thanks again for watching. I really appreciate it. Have an awesome day.